I'm scared of my girlfriend. At first, I didn't know why, but there's always been something off about her. I seem to be the only one who notices, though. The first time I noticed it was at a local winter carnival. We were on a ride, enjoying our time together and having fun. She was acting kind of distant, but I shrugged it off as nothing. At this game where you had to throw balls at some plates to break them, I had won a pretty big teddy bear after breaking 5 of them. I smiled and gave it to her. I said something along the lines of, "For the most amazing girl in the universe," and handed over the stuffed animal. What threw me off at first was that she just took it and said nothing. Not even looking at me. It kind of upset me, but I didn't want to make it awkward or something by asking about it. The weirdest part, though, was that after a few minutes I had given it to her, and we had started walking to the next ride, she looked up at me and said, "Thank you," in the most over-enthusiastic voice and smiled widely at me. The second time was at a family dinner between both of our families. Our families were chatting happily back and forth about things like when me and my girlfriend would get married and when we'd decide to adopt a child. Almost everyone was laughing and making jokes, including me. I'm not the most sociable type, but if I feel comfortable with people I'm talking to, I'll be almost as outgoing as an extrovert. But my girlfriend wasn't laughing or making jokes like she normally would. Being the social one in our relationship, she was just staring at the plate and had barely touched the food, even though she had always liked the food I cooked. She had not said a word since the beginning of dinner, and it was kind of worrying me. I leaned over to my mom and whispered, "Do you think Rose is acting weird?" My mom looked at me like I had just said the most ridiculous thing in the world. "What? No, of course not." After that, she turned back and started chatting with the others again. My mom didn't even mention what I had said to the others. And I could have sworn my girlfriend looked at me while I was talking to my mom. But when I turned my head to check, she was still looking. She was happily talking to others too. Again, I didn't think much of it until recently. It's been worse recently. She's been talking less, and I felt like I was being watched almost everywhere. At work, with friends, even while shopping for groceries. Every time I turned to check, there would be nothing. I've also been waking up with bruises and small red marks. I just figured that perhaps it was just because I was clumsy, and that I had walked into something throughout the day without even noticing. But the more I think about it, the more ridiculous that sounds. My hair hasn't been growing for the past couple of years, which is odd, but I just came to the conclusion that my hair couldn't grow any longer than that. You probably think I'm just paranoid, but I know I'm not paranoid. I know there's something up. Today, after returning from work, I yelled at her name to check to see if she was home. No answer. I figured she was out with some friends or running errands. I took off my shoes, threw my keys on the table, and hung my jacket on the coat rack. When I stepped into the main hall, I could feel the cold breeze that sent shivers up my spine. I quickly checked the house for open windows, but there was nothing. Maybe we had just forgotten to turn down the thermostat or something. It was quite cold outside after all. I checked the entire house again just to make sure. But this time when I walked by the basement door in the back of the house, I could feel cold air on my feet. It came from the basement. This was weird, since we rarely went down there, and by rarely, I mean never. The only time we've ever been down there was when we moved into the house and we had some moving boxes that we didn't want to get rid of. The basement door was always locked, so it shocked me when I put my hand on the doorknob to turn it. The door clicked and opened slightly. Confused, I carefully opened the door completely. It was dark and I could only see the stairs leading down into the blackness of the basement. I started walking slowly, keeping close to the wall. It felt like I had been walking for quite a while when I suddenly could feel the cold, concrete floor beneath my feet. I fumbled for a light switch on the wall, and pressed it when I found it. A single light bulb in the middle of the room lit up, and I couldn't see where the cold air was coming from. I stepped away from the wall and walked over to the light bulb. It flickered sometimes, and it had that well-known humming sound that old light bulbs have. My eyes had gotten a bit used to the dim light. I looked around and could make out some shapes that seemed to be boxes. An old closet, a brown chair, and the teddy bear I had given her at the local winter carnival a couple years ago. It kinda surprised me, and maybe also made me a bit disappointed that she had just put it down here to get dusty and eventually break after enough rats had crawled in it or enough insects had chosen it as their home. At this point, I'd completely forgotten why I was even down here in the first place. It was pretty close, so I didn't want to have to walk any closer to be able to see it. I still hadn't gotten completely used to the lack of light, but I was close enough to touch it, and I could see the silhouette of its head. I reached out to touch it, and I expected it to be dusty and gross. But when my fingers touched the bear's stomach, it was soft. Softer than I remember. Almost as soft as real hair or fur. I felt around the bear to check if it was the entire teddy bear that felt like this. When my fingers got to where my arm was supposed to be attached, I felt something. Something both chunky, sticky, and a bit wet. I looked down at my hands to see red clumps of some dried red stuff that I, for that moment of surprise, couldn't figure out what it was. What the hell? I quietly said out loud. My eyes had gotten completely used to the bad lighting now, and I looked back at that big teddy bear. I didn't know how I didn't see this the first time I looked at it. What the hell? I said even louder than before. A paper with a picture of my face was messily taped to the front of the poor stuffed animal with duct tape. Both of its arms and legs had been amputated, and liquid, which I now assume is blood, was smeared over the places where the arms and legs had previously been. Startled, I stepped backwards and tripped on the leg that had been laying on the ground. I fell backwards, but was saved by a huge amount of boxes that had been standing there. I stood up again, shaking. I looked around now at the broken boxes, with all the contents on the floor. What the... Oh my God. Hundreds, or even thousands of pictures of me laying on the ground. I was in disbelief. It was me just doing casual stuff like talking to friends or going grocery shopping. My hands were shaking and I was fumbling to find my phone. I first checked my front pockets and then my back pockets. Thank God it was in the back right pocket. I could feel my adrenaline rushing. I only had so much time to call the police before she came home. I heard our main door creak open and a familiar voice shout, "Emily?" I had to hide. I looked around and saw the closet. "Emily, where are you?" she continued. I opened the closet door and crawled in behind the old coats and shirts just hanging there. It smelled like dust and mothballs in here. "I know you're home." I could hear her heels clicking on the floor. She never took her shoes off when she went inside, even when I asked her to. I'm still sitting in the closet right now. I'm terrified that if I call the police, she'll hear me. I think I've been in here for over half an hour. She's been shouting for me to come out, and I can hear all the doors being slammed shut, one by one. I think she's looking for me. Shit. I forgot to close the basement door before I went down here. So, sooner or later, she'll know where I am. I just heard the basement door shut. I heard the sound of heels on the stairs. I heard the sound of her heels on the stairs start echoing throughout the basement, and I'm really scared. I don't want to die. She was walking around before the sound of her heels just stopped. She knows where I am. I'm sure.